People at work call me the guy with the plan. Not because I'm the smartest person in the room, not because I talk the loudest or dress the sharpest. It's because when everything goes sideways, a supplier drops out at midnight, a client threatens to walk, a production line goes down 3 days before a major shipment, I'm the one who doesn't flinch. I sit down, I map it out, and I find a way through. I've been doing that at Viridian Industrial for 11 years. We make precision manufacturing equipment, the kind of machinery that other companies use to build things that actually matter. Aerospace components, medical devices, infrastructure parts. It's not a glamorous industry. Nobody's putting us on magazine covers, but the contracts are real, the margins are serious, and the people who run this company do not mess around. Which is exactly why, when the invitation to the annual gala landed in my inbox, I read it 3 times. The gala is the company's big annual charity event. Black tie, downtown hotel ballroom, open bar, the whole thing. On paper, it's about giving back. In reality, and everyone knows this, nobody says it out loud, it's a performance review in formal wear. The right conversation with the right person over the right glass of whiskey can move your career forward faster than 18 months of quarterly reports. I knew that. I'd known it for years. But this was the first time I'd been invited. And the timing was not a coincidence. For the past several months, leadership had been quietly evaluating candidates for Director of Operations. My division, my wheelhouse. 11 years of solving problems that other people brought to me in a panic. And I'd done it without drama, without excuses, and without losing a single major client. I wanted that role. I'd wanted it for a long time. There was one other serious candidate, Kevin Bright, head of strategic partnerships. Polished, quick on his feet, the kind of guy who makes CEOs feel like they just had the best conversation of their day. Kevin is good at his job. I'll give him that. He's also very, very good at making sure the right people know he's good at his job. That's always been the gap between us. Kevin sells himself. I solve problems and assume the results speak for themselves. Maybe that's naive, but it's who I am. The centerpiece of the evening, at least for me, would be Richard Collins, our CEO, and Daniel Hart. Daniel Hart is our principal investor. Quiet, mid-60s, the kind of man who wears a plain watch that costs more than your car. He doesn't say much, but when he does, people write it down. More importantly, he has real influence over the director appointment. Richard respects his read on people. So, one evening, one room, 2 men who would largely determine the next decade of my professional life. I had 1 week to prepare. I know how that sounds. He spent a week preparing for a party. But that's not what I was doing. I was preparing a version of myself that was still completely authentic, just sharpened. I reviewed the talking points on the European partnership deal that leadership had been circling for months. I thought through my position on operational leadership philosophy. I even worked out how to naturally bring up the Dresden incident, a supply chain crisis from 2 years ago that I'd resolved in 72 hours without a single escalation to the C-suite. I practiced in front of the mirror, out loud, actual sentences. My wife Sarah walked in on me during one of those sessions and leaned against the doorframe with a smile. "You're rehearsing," she said. "I'm preparing," I said. She laughed. Not meanly. Sarah doesn't do anything meanly. She's one of those people who can say almost anything and make it land like a compliment. It's genuinely one of the things I love about her. She's a real estate agent and an excellent one. The woman can walk into a room of strangers and within 20 minutes know everyone's name, their kids' names, and what they actually want. Not what they said they wanted. She has a gift. She's warm, she's fast, and she's magnetic in a way I've never fully understood and have always quietly admired. "You're going to be great," she said from the doorframe. I believed her. Looking back, I think that was part of the problem. The hotel was the kind of place that makes you stand up a little straighter just by walking through the door. Marble floors, chandeliers that probably cost more than my first apartment, a string quartet in the corner playing something I didn't recognize but felt like I should. Waitstaff moving through the crowd with the kind of quiet efficiency I genuinely respect. Nobody bumping into anyone. nobody waiting too long for a fresh glass. I noticed all of this in about 4 seconds, and then I got to work. That's not the right word. It wasn't work, but it also wasn't a party. It was something in between, a social environment with professional stakes, and I'd spent a week mapping it out like a project timeline. Sarah looked incredible. Dark green dress, hair up, the kind of entrance that makes a room shift slightly without anyone knowing why. She took a glass of champagne from a passing tray, surveyed the room in about 3 seconds, and said, "Okay, who do we need to talk to?" We. I remember that. It felt good. I spotted Richard Collins near the far end of the room, talking to the CFO and a woman I recognized from the board. Daniel Hart wasn't visible yet. Kevin Bright was already stationed near the bar, laughing at something with 2 people from business development, his body language loose and easy and perfectly calibrated. I clocked all of it. "Give me an hour," I told Sarah. "I just need one real conversation with Hart and Collins together. That's it." She squeezed my arm. "Go, I'll work the room." And she did. Within 20 minutes, I could hear her laugh from across the ballroom. That specific laugh she has, big and unguarded, the kind that makes other people laugh just from hearing it. She had already collected what appeared to be a regional sales director, someone's spouse, and a woman in a blazer who turned out to be Daniel Hart's assistant. Sarah has always been better at rooms than I am. I've made my peace with it. The first hour went well. Better than well. I had a solid 10-minute conversation with the CFO about supply chain restructuring that ended with him saying, genuinely, "Mark, I didn't know you'd been tracking that. We should sit down after Q1. I filed that away. Richard Collins found me, which was better than me finding him, and we talked for a few minutes about the European deal. I kept it brief. I didn't oversell. When he moved on, I felt the conversation had landed exactly where I wanted it. Then, around the 90-minute mark, the moment I'd been waiting for arranged itself naturally, the way the best moments do when you've done enough preparation that you can stop forcing things. Daniel Hart was standing with Richard Collins, a senior VP named Tom Archer, and one of our department heads. They were talking about the European partnership, specifically about what kind of leadership it would require on the operational side. Someone mentioned pressure tolerance. Someone else said the word stability. I was close enough. The conversation pulled me in organically. I joined the edge of the group, listened for a beat, and when there was a natural opening, I stepped into it. "The way I've always seen it," I said, "the real test of operational leadership isn't how someone performs when things are running smoothly. It's what their decision-making looks like at hour 72 of a crisis. When the options are bad and the pressure is high, that's where you find out what someone's actually made of." It was one of the lines I'd practiced, but it didn't sound practiced. It sounded like something I believed, because I did believe it. Daniel Hart looked at me, not a big reaction, not a smile or a nod, just a look. The kind of look that means someone is actually listening, not just waiting for you to finish. "You're Mark Callahan," he said. "Yes, sir. Tom's mentioned you." He glanced at Tom Archer, who gave a small nod. "The Dresden situation." "That was a team effort," I said, which was only partially true, but it was the right thing to say. Hart made a small sound. Not quite agreement, not quite skepticism. He lifted his glass slightly and turned back to the group, and the conversation continued. But I had been seen. By the right person, in the right context, saying the right thing. I could feel the evening clicking into place. I want to be precise about that feeling, because it matters for what comes next. It wasn't arrogance. I wasn't counting my chickens. It was just the specific, quiet satisfaction of a plan executing the way you designed it. Like a gear catching, like a system working. I was exactly where I needed to be, saying exactly the right things, in front of exactly the right people. And then I felt a hand on my shoulder. I knew it was Sarah before she said a word. It was the specific weight of her hand, the way she always places it. Confident, easy, like she's settling in. Later I would try to remember if I had any warning, any instinct, the kind of thing you read about in retrospect and think, how did you not see it coming? I didn't. I felt her hand and I thought, good, she's found me. She'll meet Hart. This is actually perfect. She stepped into the circle. She was smiling, that full, open, light-up-the-room smile that has closed more real estate deals than I can count. She set her champagne glass down on a nearby table, and she said, "Oh, Mark, stop trying to be Rambo. There are moments in life where time doesn't exactly slow down. That's a cliché, and it's not quite accurate. What actually happens is that your brain shifts into a different mode. Hyper-observational, like a camera that suddenly increases its frame rate." I registered everything in the next 4 seconds before she said another word. Richard Collins turning toward her with polite curiosity. Daniel Hart's expression, neutral, waiting, the face of a man who has seen many things and reserves judgment on all of them. Tom Archer suppressing a small smile, because he's met Sarah before at a company picnic and he likes her. Kevin Bright, and this is the one that lodged itself somewhere behind my sternum. Kevin Bright, standing about 12 feet away with his drink, turning his head at Sarah's voice, not moving closer, just turning and watching. And Sarah, completely at ease, completely lit up, completely in her element. "Oh, Mark, stop trying to be Rambo," she said again, louder this time, for the group. "You want to talk about nerves of steel? Let me tell you what nerves of steel actually looks like in our house." I said her name. Quietly. Sarah. She didn't hear me. Or she heard me and it didn't register as a stop sign. With Sarah, I've never been entirely sure which one it is. She put one hand on her hip, champagne glass now free, and she looked at the group with the expression she gets when she's about to tell a story she's already told 3 times and loved every single time. And then she told it. Okay, picture this. A grown man manages million-dollar budgets, the whole thing, walks into a dentist's office, routine cleaning, nothing crazy. I'm sitting in the waiting room and I watch him go pale. Like actually pale. Like someone told him the market crashed and it was his fault. He looks at that little hallway to the back, like it's the hallway to a guillotine. Then, and I'm sitting right there, I heard this, he starts negotiating with the nurse. The intake nurse. He's trying to bribe her. Not with money, just like charm bribing. Offering to reschedule, explaining that he'd just had coffee so maybe the timing wasn't right, asking if maybe there was someone less drill-oriented he could see instead. She's looking at him like, "Sir, it's a cleaning." So they finally get him in the chair. And I'm in the waiting room, but I can hear, because it's a small office and the man has no volume control when he's stressed. I can hear him basically conducting diplomatic negotiations with the hygienist. Every time she reaches for something, there's this pause, and then this very careful, very tense, "What is that for exactly?" And then at some point the dentist just reaches for the mirror. The little mirror, the most harmless object in the known universe. And Mark grabs the armrests. Both of them. White knuckles. Full grip. Like the chair is going to take off. And he starts making these sounds. Not screaming, not crying, just these very quiet, very specific sounds, like a kitten that's gotten itself stuck in a fence and doesn't want to make a scene about it, but also really needs someone to come help. At some point, I don't know exactly when because I was in the waiting room trying not to lose it, he apparently closed his eyes and started whispering, and I mean whispering. The hygienist told me afterward. He's sitting there going, "I'm in my happy place. I'm on the beach. There is no pain. There is no drill. I am on the beach." The dentist had to ask him 3 times to open his mouth. 3 times, because he had his eyes shut so tight, that his entire face just compressed. The hygienist said he looked like a raisin, a very tense, very unhappy raisin. And then at the end, the best part, this is the best part, he came out of that back hallway moving so fast he forgot his jacket. His jacket, just left it. I had to go back to the front desk and apologize to the staff on behalf of my very brave husband. And they were so sweet about it. They gave him a sticker. You know those little reward stickers they give kids? For a Superboy. They put it in a little envelope with his jacket. And here's the thing about my husband. The man who just told you that real leadership is about staying calm under pressure. She paused, looked directly at me. He kept the sticker. The laugh started with Tom Archer. Tom is a good man, genuinely, and I don't blame him. Sarah is extraordinarily good at what she does, and she had built the story perfectly, brick by brick, and the sticker was the punchline, and it landed exactly the way she designed it to land. Then Richard Collins, a real laugh surprised out of him. Then the others. And from 12 feet away, I could see Kevin Bright smiling into his drink. Not laughing, smiling. The careful, private smile of a man who has just been handed something useful. I kept my face neutral. I am very good at keeping my face neutral. 11 years of crisis management. You learn to divorce your expression from your interior state. You learn to look like you're fine when the supplier just called and told you the shipment is delayed 3 weeks, and you have a client presentation in 48 hours. I looked fine. I was not fine, I said, and I kept my voice low, and I kept it even, because those were the only two things I could control in that moment. Sarah, that's not really how it... She turned to the group before I finished the sentence. Look at him, she said, with the affectionate, delighted tone of someone who loves you very much and is absolutely dismantling you in public. He's going to go find his happy place. Don't worry, honey. No drills here. Just your bosses. More laughter. Daniel Hart made a sound that was, technically, a laugh. Small, polite, but it was there. I smiled. The professional smile. The one I keep in reserve for when a client says something incorrect in a meeting and I need 30 seconds to figure out how to address it without making them feel stupid. I smiled and I nodded and I let the moment pass over me like weather. And underneath that, very quietly, like a door clicking shut in an empty house, I just lost the job. She just did that, and I just lost the job. We stayed another 45 minutes. That was my decision. Leaving immediately after would have been worse. It would have confirmed a narrative, given the moment more weight than it deserved, handed Kevin Bright a visual he could carry with him into every future conversation about the directorship. So I stayed, I refilled my drink. I had 2 more conversations. One with Tom Archer about Q1 projections, which was fine and professional and completely hollow. One brief exchange with Daniel Hart near the coat check. He was polite. He shook my hand. He said it was good to meet me properly. He didn't say anything else. That handshake felt like a period at the end of a sentence I'd spent 11 years writing. Sarah, meanwhile, was radiant. She found her way to a table with the regional sales director's wife and a woman from marketing, and I could hear her from across the room, laughing, asking questions, fully alive in the way she always is in rooms like this. She is genuinely extraordinary at this. I want to be clear about that because it matters. This isn't a story about a woman who doesn't have gifts. It's a story about what happens when someone uses their gifts on you instead of for you. The drive home was 23 minutes. I know because I watched the clock on the dashboard. Not obsessively, just the way you track small, concrete things when your brain is working very hard on something else underneath. We didn't speak for the first 4 minutes. Sarah was in a good mood. The specific warm, slightly buzzy good mood she gets after a successful social event. She had her heels off before we hit the highway, feet tucked under her, scrolling through something on her phone. I waited until we were clear of the downtown traffic, until I was sure my voice was going to come out the way I needed it to. Then I said, "Sarah? What happened tonight was not okay?" She looked up from her phone, not alarmed, more like mildly surprised, the way you look when a noise turns out to be nothing. "What do you mean?" I kept my eyes on the road. "The story you told, in front of Collins and Hart and the rest of them. You took something private, you changed it into something it wasn't, and you used it to humiliate me in the most professionally damaging context you could have possibly chosen." Silence. Then, "Humiliate you?" She said it the way you repeat a word when you're not sure you heard it right, or when you want the other person to hear how unreasonable it sounds. "Yes," I said. She was quiet for a moment. I genuinely thought for about 4 seconds, that she was considering what I'd said, that she was going to land somewhere honest. Then she exhaled. The specific exhale. The one that means, I cannot believe I have to explain this. Mark, everybody loved it. I know they did. Daniel Hart was laughing. I know he was. So what exactly is the problem? I kept my voice level. This is something I've had to practice with Sarah. Not because she's cruel, but because she moves fast and she's sharp. And if you let the conversation become emotional, you've already lost the thread of what actually happened. The problem, I said, is that it wasn't true. I didn't whisper about a beach. I didn't get a sticker. I didn't run out of the office. You took the fact that I was nervous, which you know about, which I've told you about, which goes back to something that happened when I was 9 years old, and you turned it into a cartoon, in front of the two men who are deciding whether to give me a promotion I've been working toward for 3 years. Another silence, shorter this time. You were being so stiff, she said. I didn't respond. Mark, I'm serious. I was standing there watching you, and you were so rehearsed, so stiff and formal and buttoned up. You sounded like a press release. I was trying to help you. I was trying to make you human. By making me a joke. By making you relatable. Her voice had an edge now. Not angry. Sarah rarely gets straightforwardly angry. More like frustrated that I'm not following her logic. That's what you don't understand. You walk into these things with your talking points and your strategy, and you forget that people don't give jobs to talking points. They give jobs to people they like, people they feel comfortable around. I made them comfortable around you. You made them laugh at me. Oh my God. And there it was, the eye roll I'd been waiting for, the one I could hear without seeing it because I was still watching the road. You are so insecure. Do you know that? This is the thing, Mark. This is the thing I've been trying to tell you for years. You are so insecure about how people see you that you cannot take one joke, one story, from your wife who was trying to help you. I said nothing. She turned slightly in her seat, toward me. I could feel it. Daniel Hart laughed. Richard Collins laughed. Those are not men who laugh at things that make them uncomfortable. They laughed because they liked it, because it was funny and warm and real. I gave you a personality in that room. You should be thanking me. I let a few seconds pass. Then I said very quietly, the sticker, Sarah. What? I didn't keep the sticker. There was no sticker. You know there was no sticker because you weren't there when I came out. You were already pulling the car around. You told a room full of senior leadership a story that ended with me keeping a "for a Superboy" sticker like a child. And it didn't happen. She made a sound, almost a laugh but smaller, the kind of sound that's designed to make you feel like you're the one being unreasonable. It's called creative license, Mark. It's called making a story land. Nobody cares if there was literally a sticker. I care. Because you're insecure. Because it wasn't true. Because, she said, and her voice shifted into the register I've come to think of as her closing tone, the one she uses when she's decided the deal is done, and she's just wrapping up the paperwork. You are acting like an injured child right now, which, frankly, kind of proves my point. I didn't answer that. There was nothing to answer. Not in that car, not that night. Some conversations are not actually conversations. They're just one person talking and another person waiting for it to be over. I watched the road. I thought about Daniel Hart's handshake. I thought about Kevin Bright's smile. I thought about the Dresden crisis. 72 hours, no escalations, problem solved, system restored, and how nobody in that ballroom had been thinking about that when they left. They'd been thinking about the sticker. We pulled into the driveway. Sarah got out first. She paused at the front door, keys in hand, and looked back at me over her shoulder. Her expression had softened. This is something she does. The argument ends, and she moves on cleanly, like closing a browser tab. For what it's worth, she said, I think you were great tonight. The stuff you said about leadership was really good. She went inside. I sat in the car for a while, just sat there in the dark, in the driveway of the house we've lived in for 6 years, engine off, listening to the specific silence of a night where something has changed, but you can't yet name the full shape of it. The stuff you said about leadership was really good. Like I'd given a solid presentation in a meeting that hadn't gone anywhere. Like it was a nice try. The official word came on a Thursday. Not a conversation. Not a meeting with HR. An email from Richard Collins' assistant, CC'd to the department, announcing that Kevin Bright had been appointed Director of Operations effective the 1st of next month. The email used words like exceptional vision and outstanding interpersonal leadership and unanimous confidence from senior stakeholders. I read it twice. Then I closed my laptop, got up, walked to the break room, poured a coffee I didn't want, and stood at the window looking at the parking lot for about 3 minutes. Then I went back to my desk and got to work. Because that's what I do. That's what I've always done. There was a vendor issue in the afternoon that needed untangling, a miscommunication between our logistics team and a parts supplier that was going to create a 2-week delay if nobody caught it. I caught it. I made 4 calls, restructured the delivery schedule, and sent a summary to Tom Archer by end of day. Tom responded 20 minutes later. Good catch, Mark. This would have been a mess. I stared at that message for longer than I should have. Good catch. 11 years of good catches. The jokes started the following week. Small ones at first. The kind that have plausible deniability built right into them. Delivered with a smile, followed by a light punch on the arm. Designed so that if you react badly, you're the one with the problem. It was Dave from Logistics who opened the account. He passed me in the hallway Monday morning, coffee in hand, and said, "Hey Mark, you doing okay? No drills in here, promise." Then he laughed and kept walking like he'd said good morning. I stood there for a second. Then I kept walking too, because that's what you do. By Wednesday, it had spread further than I'd expected. Someone had printed a small cartoon, I never found out who, and left it on the break room whiteboard. A stick figure in a dentist's chair, white knuckles, with a speech bubble that said, "I'm on the beach." It was gone by afternoon, but not before enough people had seen it. Thursday, a junior analyst named Brendan, a good kid, genuinely, 26 years old and just trying to fit in, stopped by my desk and asked me to review a vendor contract. Then, as he was leaving, he turned back and said, "Hey, let me know if you need your happy place sticker after. I got you." He was grinning. It was friendly. He had absolutely no idea. I looked at him for a moment. "I'll keep that in mind," I said. He left. I turned back to my screen. And I sat there thinking about something I'd read once, that in any social environment, the story that travels fastest is the one that makes someone look small in a funny way. Not cruel, just small. Because small is safe to laugh at. Small doesn't threaten anyone. I had spent 11 years building something in that office, a reputation, a specific kind of gravity. The guy with the plan, the one you call when the situation is bad and you need someone who won't flinch. Sarah had told one story, 4 minutes long at one party. And now I was the sticker guy, the dentist chair guy. The guy whose wife comes to the company gala and does 5 minutes on what a child he is under pressure. I'm not saying the jokes were malicious. They weren't. That's almost the harder thing. If people had been cruel about it, I could have addressed it cleanly. But this was just ambient, background noise, the kind of thing that reshapes how a room sees you without anyone making a conscious decision to reshape it. I noticed it in meetings. The slight shift when I spoke. Not disrespect, just a barely perceptible softening of seriousness. Like someone had quietly adjusted the dial on my credibility by 2 or 3 degrees. 2 or 3 degrees is nothing on a compass. Over 11 years of work, it's everything. I waited 2 weeks before bringing it up with Sarah again. I wanted to be calm. I wanted to come to the conversation with facts instead of feelings, because Sarah moves fast and she's sharp. And if you lead with emotion, she'll have reframed the entire thing before you finished your second sentence. So, I waited. I documented in my own head what I was seeing. I let the picture become clear. Then one evening, dishes done, TV off, both of us at the kitchen table with what remained of a bottle of wine, I said, "I need to talk to you about work." She looked up. "Okay?" "It's gotten bad, Sarah. Not just the promotion. The gala, what happened that night, the story you told. It followed me back into the office. People are making jokes. The way people look at me in meetings has changed. The professional reputation I spent over a decade building is damaged. And I stopped, steadied. I think I'm going to have to leave. I said it out loud for the first time. It landed strangely. Like a word you've been thinking for so long that saying it makes it real in a way you weren't fully prepared for. Sarah was quiet for a moment. I waited for the eye roll. For the "you're being dramatic," or the "you're connecting things that aren't connected," or the familiar architecture of a conversation that ends with me somehow holding the bill for something she did. Instead, she took a slow breath, and then she said very calmly, "Okay, so quit." I looked at her. "I'm sorry?" "Quit." She wrapped both hands around her wine glass. Her voice was even, almost gentle. "Mark, honestly, good. Get out of there." "Sarah, no, I mean it." She leaned forward slightly. "I've been watching you at that company for 11 years, and I've never, not once, seen them actually see you. You fix every problem they bring you, you catch everything that falls through the cracks, you hold that place together in ways they don't even know to measure, and what do you get? Good catch, Mark. An email announcing that Kevin Bright is your director now." She shook her head. "Those men don't deserve you. They never did. Honestly, I always hated that place." I stared at her. "You never said that." "I said it plenty of times. You just weren't ready to hear it." She sat back. "Those men, Collins, Hart, all of them, they're so in love with their own idea of what a leader looks like that they can't see what's right in front of them. You don't belong there. You never did." There was something in her voice I was trying to identify. It wasn't cruelty. It wasn't even quite dismissiveness. It was something closer to relief. Like a woman who'd been waiting for a conclusion and had finally heard it announced. I said carefully, "Sarah, you understand that this situation, the jokes, the reputation damage, the reason I feel like I have to leave, that this came directly from what you did at the gala, right?" She met my eyes. "I understand that you believe that," she said. And something shifted in my chest, cold and quiet, like a window opening in winter. "That's not an answer," I said. "Mark." Her voice was patient, measured, the tone she uses with difficult clients, not condescending, just very, very settled in its position. "I told a funny story at a party. If the men you work for are making career decisions based on a funny story their colleague's wife told, then they were never going to give you a fair shot anyway. You're looking for a reason and you found one, but the reason was always them, not me." I opened my mouth, then I closed it. Because here's the thing, and this is the part I keep turning over, the part I can't find the clean edge of. She wasn't panicking. She wasn't defensive. She wasn't scrambling to rebuild an argument on the fly. She was settled, like she'd already been to this place in her head, like she'd already mapped the terrain and found her footing and was waiting for me to arrive and catch up. I've managed enough crises to recognize the difference between someone reacting to new information and someone responding from a position they'd already prepared. This was the second thing, and for the first time since the gala, I wasn't thinking about the dentist story or the sticker or Kevin Bright's smile. I was thinking about something else. I was thinking, why does she need me to leave that job? The silence stretched between us. Sarah refilled her glass, unhurried. Then she set the bottle down and looked at me with an expression I'd seen before in very different contexts. The expression she gets right before she shows a client a property she's already certain they're going to love. "Can I tell you something?" she said. "Please," I said, and I meant it. "I've been thinking about this for a while, a real while, and I genuinely think, that everything that's happened in the last few weeks might actually be pointing somewhere important." She paused, choosing the next words with the care of someone who has rehearsed them. "I have a plan, Mark, a real one, not just an idea. I've been working on it. And I think if you just let yourself step out of that building and actually listen, you might see it the same way I do." I looked at her for a long moment. My wife. the most compelling person I've ever met. The woman who can walk into any room and make it hers. The woman who told a story that dismantled 4 minutes of my professional life and is now sitting across from me, calm and certain and already 3 moves ahead. The man I am, the one who maps things out, who finds the grip, who doesn't flinch. That man wanted to push back, wanted to name what he was feeling, which was something close to, "I think you burned something down on purpose, and I don't yet know why." But I've also managed enough situations to know when pressing forward costs you information you need. So I did the thing I do. I found the grip. I controlled the breathing, and I said, "Okay, tell me the plan." She started the way she always starts a pitch, not with numbers, not with logistics, with a feeling. "Do you remember the last time you actually felt excited about your life here?" she said. "Not satisfied, not fine. Actually excited." I didn't answer, which was, I understood the point. She got up, came back with a folder. An actual folder. Tabbed and organized and clearly not assembled last Tuesday. I looked at it and felt something shift in my stomach. "This city has gotten small," she said. "You know it has. Same roads, same people, same office, same conversations. We built something fine here, Mark. But fine isn't enough anymore." She opened the folder and walked me through it. The idea, stripped to its bones. Sell the house. The market is extraordinary right now. She'd done the math. We'd walk away with more equity than made sense. Take that capital, move to a new city, and open a boutique real estate agency together. Luxury market, high-end clients. A segment that was moving fast in several metros she'd been tracking. She'd been watching it, she said, for about 2 years. Her role? Sales, client relationships, marketing. The part she's brilliant at, the part she was built for. My role? Operations, systems, personnel, process. Everything that makes an agency actually function instead of collapse under its own chaos. "Most boutique agencies are disasters on the inside," she said. "Great at selling, terrible at running. They lose deals to disorganization. That's where you come in. You build things that don't break, Mark. You always have." She slid a page across the table. Market analyses, city comparisons, transaction volume by metro. She'd done her homework. Of course she had. And the thing is, the idea itself wasn't crazy. I could see it working. I could already see the structure of it, the way I see the structure of everything, the load-bearing pieces, the points of failure, the shape of what it could be. But there was a question I couldn't get past. "How long have you been working on this?" I asked. She held my gaze. "A while." "Sarah, how long?" "A beat." "About 8 months." 8 months. I looked at the tabbed folder, the printed analyses. 8 months of careful, quiet, thorough work. "And you didn't say anything?" I said. "For 8 months. I knew you wouldn't be ready to hear it." "Because of the promotion." She nodded, carefully. Something cold moved through me, slow and specific, like water finding the lowest point in a room. "So you knew," I said. "You knew I wouldn't agree as long as I had a shot at the directorship. And instead of coming to me, instead of sitting down, showing me this, making the case, having a real conversation, you went to that gala, and you told that story." She opened her mouth. "In front of Collins, in front of Hart, in front of everyone who was ever going to take my career seriously in that building." My voice stayed level. I needed it to stay level. "You removed the thing you knew I'd choose over your plan?" "Mark, is that wrong?" Silence. She looked at me with the expression of someone choosing very carefully between what's true and what's manageable. "I thought if you weren't holding on to that job so tightly," she said quietly, "you might actually be able to see what I'm offering." I stood up, walked to the window, stood there for a moment looking at nothing. Then I turned back. "You want to build something real," I said. "I understand that. I actually do. But Sarah, you made a decision about my career, my reputation, my life, and you made it alone, without asking me, without telling me. And now you're sitting here with a folder you've been building for 8 months, asking me to sell our house and move to a new city and build your dream. I stopped. When did my opinion become optional? She didn't answer. That's what I can't get past, I said. Not the plan. The plan I can look at. The plan I can think about. But you didn't come to me as a partner. You managed me. You decided what I was allowed to know and when I was allowed to know it and what circumstances would make me most likely to say yes. I looked at her. That's not a marriage, Sarah. That's a negotiation I didn't know I was in. She started to say something. I shook my head. I need to think. So that's the whole story. 6 a.m. Saturday, cold coffee. Sarah asleep upstairs. The folder still on the counter. I keep coming back to two options. Option 1, I pick up that folder. I sit down with her. We have the conversation we should have had 8 months ago, as partners. Not as a woman with a plan and a man she needed to maneuver into position. Maybe there's something real in those pages. Maybe we build it and it works. And in 5 years, this is just the rough chapter we got through. Option 2, I accept that the woman I've shared my life with for 14 years looked at my career, my reputation, my trust, and made a unilateral decision to sacrifice all three for something she wanted. And that's not something I can unknow. Maybe some cracks don't get repaired. Maybe this is one of them. I don't know which one is right. What I know is this. I'm exhausted. And I'm standing at the most uncertain point in my life with no map and no plan. Which for me is its own kind of hell. So I'm asking, genuinely, what would you do? Drop it in the comments. Seriously, have you been through something like this? The betrayal? The career hit? The moment you realized you didn't fully know the person sleeping next to you? Did you stay or did you walk? Do you regret it either way? I'm not looking for validation. I'm looking for people who've actually been here. If you felt this story hit hard, drop a like, subscribe for more, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support keeps Steelheart beating.